Hello everyone, I have finally made it back for the Stitch With Me video that I've been trying to film since maybe June. I hope finally figured out my camera setup, my frame and stand setup so that I can get this done and do a tag that I've been wanting to do since I saw Emily C. post this back in June. Today I'm going to be working on this piece by Shakespeare's Peddler called Fraktur Friends. And I started this, I believe, back in April. I have it written down somewhere. I'm not really sure when that was. But back in April sometime. And I've just worked on it here and there, not really focusing on it, just playing around with it. This will be my third or fourth project on silk gauze. I am by no means an expert. I will show you how I do it, which may be completely different than other people do it. I don't really know that there is a right way or a wrong way. It's just whichever way works for you. So, set that aside. Hopefully, I won't be too shaky with the camera. I've tried to mount it on a completely different stand than what I'm working on, but I do apologize if there are too many bumps and bruises along the way. I will try to put a photo in of the entirety of how I have this set up on my frame. As you may be able to tell here, I have mounted my silk gauze between fabric, stitched around the edge, cut the fabric away carefully so as not to damage the gauze, and then put it on my scroll frame. I put a piece of black fabric behind my stitching. It just seems to make the whiteness of the gauze stand out more and be able to see the holes better. And you can tell up here I do use waist knots because this is a full coverage piece. It's similar to stitching on a Heaven and Earth design full coverage. Those are, those strands of floss right there are going to be covered. Then I can snip away my knots and all is well. So let's get started. I already have thread started here down on the bottom right hand corner, and I'm stitching at a completely different angle than what I normally would. Normally I would have this closer to my eyes and at a little more of an angle, so I'm hoping that this will work out. I stitch with my left hand underneath and my right hand on top when I'm doing two-handed stitching. I have not figured out a way to stitch on silk gauze with the sewing method or in hand. There may be a way, but I cannot get comfortable with that. So I do go ahead and stitch with the two-handed method. And oh, please pardon my horrible manicure right now. Our kindergarten classes are doing a few weeks of colors, and I had a little request. Actually, I had several littles request that last week I wear pink. So I dug through my polish stash and brought out the Barbie doll pink, and next week is blue, so stay tuned for that. Okay, enough about that. So I am stitching this 1 over 1 with the call for anchor flosses, and you just basically do the same as you would on linen or even weave, stitching over one. I'm doing a half cross stitch, or it's referred to as a tent stitch as well with this. It's kind of a gloomy day here today, so I'm hoping that my lighting will be sufficient to film. Last week it was just like so incredibly hot and humid. In the 90s, I think one of the midweek, it was something like 90 degrees, but it felt like 96 with the humidity. And then Thursday and Friday, it was raining off and on all day, and it's been very cloudy and rainy today, which is Saturday. We need the rain. I'm not going to complain about that, but it's really making the grass grow, and I can't get out to cut the lawn because it's so wet. Not that I enjoy doing that, but it needs to be done. So for the purposes of this video, I went ahead and I outlined some areas so that I wouldn't have to be counting. And it just does make it go by a little bit quicker. You don't have to be looking at your chart continuously. And like I said, typically I'm actually going at quite a slow pace for me because I'm not as close to my stitching as I normally would be. So I thought I would do the tag that Emily C. shared with us back in June on, I believe it was her Stitch With Me 2 video. And there's some very interesting questions that I thought I would answer. I'll try to link her channel below. Let me see here. Her first question was, what is your favorite cereal? And let me start by saying I don't really have favorites of things. There are things that I like better than others, but if I would be hard pressed to come up with my absolute favorite of anything. I've always been that way. So my favorite cereal also has to do with the fact that growing up, we didn't eat breakfast cereal, like cold cereal. My mom would get up every single morning and fix us a hot breakfast. So we had oatmeal, if you want to count that as cereal. But I think Emily probably meant it as cold cereal. And I don't frequently eat cold cereal, but when I do, I guess I would most likely always choose Raisin Bran Crunch. But I can probably list, just a handful of times that I've actually ever eaten that. If it's not as a breakfast food, though, I absolutely love making Chex Mix at Christmas time, and I will eat that all day long. So there you have the answer to number 1. Number 2, another favorites. What are your favorite pizza toppings? Again, no favorites, but there is one that I absolutely loved. When we lived in Nashua, New Hampshire, we would order from Nashua House of Pizza one that had bacon and spinach and a white sauce base. Oh, it was so good. But I've never run across that pizza. I think it had feta cheese too. It was so good. But I love all pizza. I will eat any kind of pizza. Typically, I leave it up to whoever I'm eating with to decide, because I am not picky on that at all. Question number 3. You are on death row. What is your last meal? Well, I love food, and it would be very difficult for me to choose, but if I had to choose, I'm thinking maybe like a Cajun crab boil would be good, or what else? I don't know. Maybe that would be it. Pizza. Because I do love pizza. It's laundry day. What are your really weird bottom of the drawer underwear? I don't have any outlandish underwear on a regular basis. That's probably too much information. But one pair that gets pushed to the back of the drawer, the bottom of the drawer, would be, I think they're called boyfriend shorts, something like that, and they're red with snowflakes. So they don't get worn very often. Only at Christmas time. Number 5. Who would play you in a movie about your life? When I was younger, and when she was younger, people used to tell me that I look like Sally Field. So I guess for that reason, Sally Field would play me. Not sure anyone would want to watch a movie about my life. It's very boring life, but I like it. Okay, number 6. What food items do you sneak into the movie theater in your purse or man bag? I don't go to the movies a lot. For the simple fact that I don't like sitting still for that long without having something else to do. Like, I can't just sit and watch something on TV or listen to a podcast or a book without doing something else. That's the great appeal to me about cross stitch, is that you can stitch while you are watching or listening. But when I do go, usually at the request of one of my children, I most likely will sneak in some Skittles. I like to eat my popcorn. I like to buy popcorn and make it last the majority of the movie, because I also have this tendency that I inherited from my dad that if I sit still for too long at a time, I fall asleep. If I'm not doing something with my hands. So, I mean, I've fallen asleep at the dentist's office, at the doctor's office, getting my hair cut. It's very weird. So I like to try to, in a dark room, watching a movie, slowly eat my popcorn. Okay, this is probably way more information than you guys ever wanted to know about me. Number 7, what is your perfect vacation? I love going on vacation. I don't like the planning of a vacation and all that is involved in that. But I have to say, one of the best vacations that I went on was when I lived in Germany. I belonged to a quilt guild there, and the guild set up through an independent travel agent a trip to Russia to visit with and quilt with a Russian quilt guild. And this lady, our tour guide, had extensive knowledge of every area that we went to, and it was fantastic. On that particular trip, we didn't have a lot of individual free time because of the location that we were going to. But I do like, in a normal vacation, to have time to go see the sights and do all the things, as well as have some downtime just to relax. So I guess my perfect vacation would be to have part of it very planned and part of it unplanned, just to do as you want, whether that's be on the beach just relaxing or by the pool with no commitments for that day. Okay, number 8. You're stuck on a deserted island and can have 5 things. What do you have? Well, I've watched way too much Naked and Afraid. So my 5 things are going to be very practical. A knife, a fire starter, some type of water filtration system, some sort of blanket or covering, because I hate being cold. And number 5 was a toss-up between insect repellent or some type of cooking utensil of, or I guess, a pot or pan. I don't like getting bitten by bugs, so hopefully I would be able to figure out a natural bug repellent. I don't know. I don't think I would get bored because I love exploring, and I would explore every inch of the island. I don't think I would need a book or a craft, I would be too busy just trying to make sure I survived, waiting for help, fashioning a boat so I could get off the island if I wanted to. But there are days I want to be on a deserted island with no other human being around. I think we all have those days occasionally. Okay, number 9. If you could have a reproduction sampler or a reproduction style chart with any theme possible, what would it be? That was a hard question because there are so many beautiful reproduction samplers out there. But I think I would like one with extensive family history. I saw somewhere one like that. Obviously, it's very individualized to your family. But I would like someone else to do all the research and chart it up for me. But I think that would be cool. I think that would be a cool thing to pass down to future generations. Number 10, what is your strangest travel experience? Bonus points if you've ever spent time in a foreign jail. Oh my goodness. Okay, I've done a lot of traveling. And I've been very fortunate, I think, not to have a lot of strange experiences. However, one time on a flight to Amsterdam, and that was the first leg of the flight, I had an 8 or maybe it was about a 10-hour flight after that flight. But on that particular flight, I was seated next to a passenger who was doing inappropriate things to himself. Well, inappropriate for where we were. And so I very discreetly got up and went and spoke to the flight attendant, and they promptly moved me to first class, which was nice, but it was just, I mean, and this was like within a very short time after takeoff. So we had a long flight ahead of us, and I'm like, oh, I'm not sure I want to be here in this seat next to this person for that amount of time. So that was my weird travel experience, and no time spent in a foreign jail. Thank goodness. What number was that? Okay, so number 11. What are you saving money for right now? Well, right now, long-term saving, retirement. Short-term saving for the Midwest cross-stitch retreat in October, because I am hoping to go to Stitchville, USA, and touch all the fabric and all the floss. Maybe not so many patterns, but all the fabric, because you just can't get a really good representation of what the fabric is like online, because everyone's computers view colors so differently, and I don't have an LNS, and I just want to look and feel all the fabric and buy some. Okay, number Number 12. What craft would you like to get better at? That's a toss-up. I would, between knitting and rug hooking. I've done a bit of both. I've enjoyed both, but I feel like I'm not very good at it. I can do some real basic things in knitting. I've made a cardigan, not a cardigan, what's it called? Not the pullover cardigan. It has buttons. What's that called? I've made one of those with the help of my knitting friends in England. I've made a huge blanket, the Harry Potter or Ron Weasley blanket for my daughter, and I'm in the process of making another one for my son. I've made some little stuffed animals. I've made some fingerless gloves, but I would really, 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 really love to make socks. So that's why I want to get better at knitting. Rug hooking, on that one, I would just like to get better at having a more even height of loop. And yeah, I just need to go to a good store that has those supplies and pick their brain. Okay, before I go on to the next one, I'm going to come over here. This area is going to be filled in, so I'm going to just do a waist knot. Which, this is how I do it. This is not how anyone else may do it. And I'm sorry if my hands are in the way. I didn't leave as much of a tail as I normally would. So I don't have as much room to... Okay. And I'm just going to clip that off down below. And I have another strand ready to go. Again, I'm making a waist knot. I use the quilter's knot that my grandmother taught me years and years and years ago by wrapping and pulling, and you get a knot that looks, where are we? Something like that. Sorry if I was out of camera frame. I think I bumped the stand. And then I just, because again, like I said, this is going to be full coverage, I just come in and start anew. Okay, where were we here? If you had to stitch any 3 designers for the rest of your life, who would you choose? That was a very easy choice for me. Because they're designers that I already stitch. And the first one would be Blackbird Designs. I just think that their pieces are very timeless. The second one would be Shakespeare's Peddler, because well, her patterns are fabulous. But I like the fact that she does both reproduction samplers and other things, such as the Fraktur Friends and the little series that she's doing with the basket ofs. So it's a nice mix. It's a really nice mix of pieces. And then my third one would be Brenda Gervais with Thy Needle and Thread, because I haven't seen a single thing that she's designed that I didn't like. That's not to say that I don't have other designers that I really enjoy, but those I think would have to be my top three. At least at the moment. And they have been for a while, but I'm sure they will continue to be. Number 14. What is the dumbest way you've been injured? How much time do you have? No. Again, this is a toss-up between two different things. When we lived in Germany, in order to get to the attic, we had like a pull-down ladder. You open this little trap door by pulling on this rope, and then once it let down, you unfolded this ladder. And then when you were finished, you would fold the ladder back up, pull on the rope, and it would close. Well, I don't even remember why I needed to get up in the attic, but my two younger children were at home, and they were nearby, and I had been up in the attic. I folded up the ladder, and one of them said something to me, and I stopped to answer their question, and the ladder fell down on my head and knocked me to the floor, and they freaked out. I didn't pass out, but it was as close, I think, to you that you could get without passing out. But I think what had happened is that I thought that I had it fully folded back up, and I didn't. And so it unfolded and conked me on the head. And I had a really pretty good sized knot on my head for quite a while. The other one that I thought about sharing was I sleepwalk, and sometimes it's worse than others. And one time I was sleepwalking and I fell down a flight of stairs, and on one side of the stairs is the normal railing and banister, and on the other side of my stairs was this beautiful exposed brick, and the stairs were not carpeted. It was like hardwood. And I went tumbling down the stairs and against the exposed brick. And it was like the second that I stepped onto the stairs and fell, the falling woke me up. So I was very aware of the pain. As I'm tumbling down the stairs and trying to stop myself. So since that time, I have put an alarm on my bedroom door. Well, I try to remember to put it on there every night, to set it every night, but there have been occasions that I've forgotten. But yeah, that was kind of a silly way. So I got a lot of bumps and bruises and twisted my knee, and that was not good. All right. I also sleep, eat, and talk in my sleep, and strange person that I am. Number 15. What is your worst roommate or housemate story? I don't really have a worst of that. I got very lucky. My first roommate in college was a very quiet girl, very sweet, very quiet. We didn't have any issues that I was aware of. I didn't have any issues with her. I hope she didn't feel like she had any with me. And then after my freshman year, the next time I had roommates, it was with my two best friends, and we all got along very well. And those are the only roommate, housemate situations I've been in. So, sadly, no crazy stories on that. I was very lucky. Number 16, you have unlimited income. What does your dream house look like? Oh, again, this was a difficult question for me in some ways because I have lived all over the world, all over the United States, all over the world, and I have loved every single place that I have lived in. There's been something that I really liked about the place, something that would possibly draw me back to the place. And I've lived in a lot of different houses. But I think if I had to settle on one, I don't know. Okay, it's between living in an old farmhouse that has been renovated with reclaimed items, reclaimed hardwood floors if it doesn't already have it, that type of thing. And on a piece of land where the nearest neighbor was, a few miles away in New Hampshire. I loved living in New Hampshire. So that would be one of my choices. Another choice would be in an apartment in the middle of New York City. I just think I would love that. I kind of like to be anonymous, which is a weird thing to say about someone who does YouTube videos. I like having, this is going to sound bad, I like socializing, but it's sometimes very stressful. I always have a good time, but it exhausts me mentally and physically. So I prefer to have a few really close friends than have a large number of acquaintances. So living in a location where you are just one of thousands upon thousands of people is appealing to me, or living out in the middle of nowhere is appealing to me. I don't know. My third option is to live on a narrow boat. I'm not sure I could really do that because I have too much stuff. I'm not sure I could give up all my stuff or a lot of my stuff. And it's not because it's fabulous stuff, but it has great meaning to me. There are pieces that, because I have moved so much in my life, those pieces mean home to me because of the experience of how I came about having them. So they have great sentimental value to me, even if it's something old and crusty and chippy and nearly falling apart. So it would be really difficult for me to downsize enough to live on a narrow boat and go up and down the canals. But maybe I could have my dream house, and that could be my weekend getaway. Okay. I'm not very good at answering these questions. I can't just give a single answer, unfortunately. Let's move on. Number 17. What song would you want played or sung at your funeral or memorial? I don't want to have a public funeral or even a private funeral or memorial. I'm either want my body donated to science or I want to be cremated. And I don't want my children to have to be carrying around an urn of my ashes for the rest of their lives. They can take me to some beautiful spot and scatter my ashes there. I have a lot of types of music that I really enjoy. Again, it goes back to that I don't have a favorite of anything. I have lots of things that I enjoy, but one of the types of music that I enjoy the most is like Glenn Miller, Frank Sinatra, Ella Fitzgerald, that kind of good music. So if my children feel the need to listen to something or play something while they're scattering my ashes, something from one of those artists would be nice. Or they can play The Witch is Dead. I don't care. I really don't care. How am I going to know what happened? Okay. What is your favorite board or card game? No favorites. Some I like to play, but I remember especially when my son was younger, he loved playing Phase 10 or Top That, and I always look forward to us playing that together. My children are big board game players and card game players, so we play a lot of different ones and enjoyed them all. I know when children have favorites, but one of the ones that I enjoy playing with them, Clue. I do love Clue. And I love playing Risk, even though it takes forever. At one point on a holiday we went on, it was away to a cabin in the woods, and we took Risk with us, and it was in the winter, and we played that for days, the same game, ongoing, and that was great. Okay, we're nearing the end, guys. We are nearing the end. Number 19, who is your first celebrity crush? I do remember this. Please don't laugh. Oh, no, you can laugh. I was maybe 5 or 6 years old, and I remember being so in love with Michael Landon, who played Little Joe on Bonanza. I thought he was the best thing ever, and still think he was a very good actor. I loved when he was cast for Pa on Little House on the Prairie, and those were books that my mom and I read together when I was little, and I thought he was the perfect actor to be chosen as Pa. Okay, number 20, if you could capture a smell in a candle or perfume, what would that smell be? Well, I don't think I would capture it in a perfume, but definitely a candle. And it would be, I have to tell this story first. When I was growing up, my family had a wood burning furnace to heat our houses in the wintertime, our house in the wintertime. And we lived in town, but my family owned a piece of property, what we called out in the country. Now, mind you, this town was a town of 1,000 people, so it was also country, but, you know, when you're a kid, you think of it as not. So, the piece of land that we owned out in the country was not developed land. It was forest. And my dad was trying to slowly clear the forest, and we would cut wood off of that piece of land to burn in our wood burning furnace. And one time, I think it was like a unusually brutal winter, and we would cut this wood, you know, during the summer and fall, and stockpile it for use over the winter. But that particular winter, we were running out, and so one Saturday or Sunday afternoon, my dad asked me if I wanted to go cut wood with him. And I, yeah, sure. And I was probably maybe 9 or 10 years old. And I remember there was snow on the ground. It was cold. And he would cut the tree down, cut the limbs off of it, I would, you know, stack the brush, as we called it, and he would build a fire to burn the bits that weren't usable in our furnace. And that was my job, was to stack the brush. And then when he would start cutting the limbs into pieces, then that was my job, was to load it. And it seemed like we were there forever, but we probably weren't. But I got hungry, and I told my dad that I was hungry. So he went and shot a rabbit. And please don't, I mean, my family were hunters, are hunters, but only for food purposes. Not for trophies, simply for food purposes and surviving. That's how I grew up. And so he shot this rabbit and cleaned it and fashioned a spit. And I sat there at the fire while he was continuing to cut wood and cooked the rabbit. And when it was done, he came over and we had the best meal of just rabbit in my life. And I just remember that time with my dad, and the way the crispness of the air and the smell of the fire and the smell of the rabbit cooking. I wish I could capture that in a candle, and I don't know, sit there and burn the candle and reminisce about time spent with my dad. So yeah, I miss him lots. Okay, so that ends the questions on Emily C's tag. Thank you, Emily, for putting that together and sharing that with us. Some very diverse questions and quite possibly more information than you ever cared to know about me. But there you have it. As you can see, we're moving right up along her dress. Comes back down here with the same color. I'm enjoying stitching this, but I'm in no hurry to finish it. It's going to be the same as all my other whips, slow going, although I'm thinking about switching up my plans for 2019 and how I approach what I'm working on. I love stitching the Little House Needleworks Farmhouse Christmas. I love the design, and I'm looking forward to having that piece finished and FFO'd. But having something that I feel like I have to do every month, I don't like that. I don't like the time constraints. Like, I don't know. I want to stitch on my time And no, I mean, clearly no one is holding a gun to my head saying you have to stitch this in this month. And I am a month behind in it. But just, I set those anxieties on myself of, oh, I need to get this done. I need to get this done. And so I'm stitching on that when I'd rather be stitching on something else. It's my own doing. But I think I'm going to switch up and not join any series like that. I like waiting to the end of a series and buying the whole thing at one time, because then I don't feel like I have to be stitching those in the month they came out in. So more to come on my 2019 plans later in the year. My goodness, it's only September and I'm already thinking about stitching plans for 2019. Oh, sorry if I bumped you. But there's time to think on that. I'm going to leave that here. I'm pleased with the progress we made today. I hope that you all were able to see what I was doing. I can't see right now what you can see. Maybe I can figure something out for any future Stitch With Me programs, videos. I liked the way Teresa Kitten Stitcher did hers, where she just sat and talked and you didn't really, you know, you couldn't really see her stitching as she stitched. But I don't know if I don't know. We'll see how this one goes, if I do another one or not. I'm just rambling on now. I hope you all are having a good stitchy month. And if you have any questions, please feel free to leave them in the comments below. I will do my best to answer them. I will warn you, I am way behind on answering comments, but I hope to get caught up on those soon. And until next time, happy stitching. Bye.